Can you guess how much fun I'm having? None. The answer is none. I'm having no fun. For those of you unfamiliar, this is the back end of an LS engine. So you can see there, it's a 5.3 actually. And I did not film anything that led up to this. This is just, I'm in the middle of swapping out a transmission. And while we're here, if you'll notice, there happens to be some oil on the rear main seal. But I want to use this as a chance to give a caution to people who are going to be doing the oil pan gasket. So, as you'll see here, the oil pan gasket has these two holes, or sorry, the oil pan has these two holes right here, and then it has these bolts that run up through it, and they thread into the cover here, the plate on the back where the rear main seal sits. Now, for people who've not done this job, when you pull this plate off in that, if you're doing the seal, you want to make sure that the alignment of this plate is correct, because it is not pinned like the older Chevy engines. So you pull this plate off, you clean up the mating surfaces, there's a gasket that runs behind it, but then when you put it back together, there's a sleeve that you buy that sits over the crankshaft, and it centers this up on it. You put this plate on without this seal in, and then after that plate is bolted up, centered up on the crankshaft, and you make sure it's level here, it's not kind of cockeyed one way or the other, you tighten it down. And then this seal will ride exactly how it's supposed to, not off center. Well, here's the problem. The bolts that go through here, these holes, they bolt into the transmission. And I'm guilty of it, well, in a way. When you're putting this pan back up after you do an oil pan gasket, you'll put the pan up in there, and then you'll put these screws or these bolts through the bell housing of the transmission and start them in there, just to kind of get that pan up and held up so you don't have to hold it while you try to get some of the other bolts lined up. Well, the problem comes in the order that people tighten it down. They want that pan to sit flat up against the bottom of the pan or engine, so they'll tighten these bolts down right here that go through the transmission, and it'll help hold that pan up straight, and then they'll run all the bolts down the side in, and they'll tighten these bolts down. And what you've done is once you tighten these to the transmission, you've locked this portion, this pan, in place. And then you run bolts through it into this cover, and you pull that cover down, and instead of easily pulling this up and cinching down that gasket, you drag that cover out of place. And I want you to see, if you can see here, the bottom of this seal, when I push up, not this lip, but the lip that's back inside there, when I push up, my focus is wanting to mess with me. It's very hard to tell here, but when you push up, you can see that gap back in there closed. This front lip wants to move in front of it, but you can see that gap close up. And when you come up here and look at it, and you push down, you can see that it's already riding against the crank. It is the smallest, slightest of little gaps, but that's all it takes for this thing to just pour oil out while the engine's running. So, for those of you doing oil pan gaskets, these bolts go in last, okay? After you tighten down all of these to the proper torque specifications. And if you have to do a rear main seal, instead of having to do it twice, pull the plate off, get the alignment tool, make sure this plate's lined up correctly. Hope the video helps you. I hope you don't make this mistake, because if you make this mistake here, you'll be pulling the transmission out to do this up here. You guys have a good day. I'll catch you guys in the next video.